listening to Faithful Friends, our new interfaith podcast where a rabbi and a Catholic deacon sit down to talk about life, faith, and the places where our stories intersect.
We're not here to debate. We're here to explore, to ask questions, maybe even laugh a little along the way. I'm Anthony Cullen, a Catholic deacon, theology nerd, and teacher of the faith.
And I'm Rabbi Chaim Edelstein, lover of Torah, tradition, and a good cup of coffee.
Hey, Rabbi. We're here with our live studio audience today. I have people from various chapters of my life, from scouting to church to my mother. Hi, Mom. She's in the back. I'm calling her out because she hates when I do this during my homilies, too. Yep. I'm also your lift home, so you can't run. Yep. So we're here tonight to talk a little bit about the winter traditions of Judaism and Catholicism, Christianity, mainly Christmas and Hanukkah, and we're going to be kind of diving into some other traditions as well, like a little bit of some origin stories. Rabbi and I were talking in the kitchen beforehand, and we already started having the aha moments right as we were pulling out Oreos and donuts and making a pot of coffee for everybody. So I was looking forward to this. I'm glad so many people came out tonight as we're recording. It's the fourth Sunday of Advent and the eighth night of Hanukkah. So we're kind of wrapping up the end of December with all of our major festivities for the winter coming up.
It's always nice when stuff lines up, and thanks everyone for coming out. Such a nice opportunity to be together. We don't often get to do that, and to spend the last night of Hanukkah, and I know in a few days with the Christmas holiday, that we get the opportunity to come together and talk about what makes this time special for all of us, and enjoy some nice company and good conversation. We have the light of the menorah to keep us warm, and we'll dive in. So I know one question that had come up to me, and I think we're gonna start off with just a topic or two, and then hopefully that kind of gets the ball rolling here. People will have questions, or people have comments, they'll come up to our microphone here and ask. One question that I was thinking of was about candles and the role that candles play in these holidays and this time of year. Of course, many cultures have some kind of lighting a candle or a flame as part of a winter solstice kind of time holiday. We, of course, over Hanukkah, start with one candle. It's actually two, but one of them doesn't count, called the shamash, that won't get too much into that unless people ask the question, I think. But we start with those candles, and then we add one every night. So tonight, the eighth night, we have 9 candles here burning, but one for each night of Hanukkah plus the extra one. And I know that you have some candles that you use throughout the season, so I'd love to hear about some of the candles that you use and the meaning.
Sure.
The meaning there.
So during this preparation season going up to Christmas, we have the season called Advent, which really just means it's the preparation for the coming of Christ. The first coming, the incarnation, Christmas, Christ coming into the world, but also it's a preparation for the second coming, which we hear about at the end of Scripture, the God coming back into the world and preparing for the end times as well. So it's this dual-fold nature in the season of Advent. The candles, from what we understand, is not really an ancient tradition of the church. It's actually not even a Catholic tradition at all. It comes from the Lutheran Church from the early 19th century, where they decided to start using candles to signify more light coming into the world. And we hear specifically in the Gospel of John, Christ being the light of the world. And that's when we get to Christmas, the light is here. And then some traditions have 4 candles, some had 5, with the 5th one being this white candle in the middle, this pure candle. And that's what, the light of Christmas, the light of Christ coming into the world at that point. So each week, each Sunday, Saturday night be the first time, the candles are lit. Even though that light is divided, it's now getting brighter and brighter as we get towards the Christmas holiday.
So you're adding candles, which also is our common custom to add candles, and which is interesting. We have a debate in the early rabbinic teachings over whether you should start with one candle and count up on Hanukkah, or maybe you should start with 8 candles and then take one away each night. And the adding candles custom won, and that's basically universal. Everyone counts up rather than counting down. So now, but you're saying that the Advent candles, and you said four or five,
Four.
right?
Most in the Catholic Church, you'll mostly see 4.
You'll see, okay, so 4,
yeah.
but you're counting up as well.
Correct.
And you borrowed that from some of our
the
other
Lutheran
friends
Church,
as well.
yeah.
From,
they broke off from us,
right?
1500s, and we thought it was a nice idea, I guess. So officially, it's not really a Catholic thing, but most churches and many homes have it in this time of year.
So something about adding more light at
Correct.
This time of
this
year.
time
Days
of,
are getting shorter. We want
right.
something. We want something nice, something warm and bright.
Exactly. And then once we get to Christmas, being such a celebratory day, there's usually a lot more candles in the church, more at the altar, more around the church, just celebrating that light, just like the light on the Christmas tree, the lights in our windows, everything along those lines. Light is a big symbol that we use at Christmas, also at Easter, but that's an Easter conversation. Yeah.
Sure. You guys have some questions, comments about light and candles? Yeah, come on up.
Are we coming up with notes?
Hi, guys. How are
here
you?
We go.
I'm a triple F, faithful Friends fan. So, all right. So what I enjoy the most about your podcast is the similarities across your faiths. We just lit 8 candles. We have 12 days of Christmas. Can you kind of draw some similarities to those numbers? Why 8? Why 12?
Why 8 and why 12? You want to? Why don't you?
You guys started
You
it
want me to
first.
start with that
yeah.
one? Okay.
Yeah. We stole it from you because we have the same.
So why 8 days of Hanukkah and then 12 days of Christmas? Well, that's a good question. So okay, I'm going to give you the short version of this because it's a hotly debated topic. It's called the Kusha debate Yosef, the problem of Joseph Caro. And what was his problem? It says that the reason we light the candles was the miracle of the oil. Okay, that at Hanukkah they come in. The Greeks had desecrated the temple in Jerusalem, and the Maccabees, the Hashmoni dynasty that comes up at this time, had purified the temple, and they found just enough oil to light the menorah that was in the temple for one day, and it continued to burn an additional 7 days. So the question is, if there was enough oil for one day, and it continued to burn for an additional 7, why do we light 8 candles for the miracle when there doesn't seem to be a miracle on the first day? Right? They had enough oil, it burned, what's the big deal? And this, I know a few of my folks who were at a lunch and learn I did at the beginning of the month, we talked about, I have a book that has 500 possible answers to this question. It's like the most discussed question in Jewish literature, okay? And one of the answers given, there's like a whole category of answers that 8 stands for something else. There's a different reason that we do 8 days at Hanukkah. It's not actually about the miracle of the oil. That's like a nice thing. And one is we have other holidays that are 8 days long. So the holiday of Sukkot, which is at the end of our sort of high holiday season, where we have the sukkah, the booth, okay, that we are supposed to eat all of our meals, ideally sleep in, etc. So during Sukkot, well, that's really an 8-day holiday. It's 7 days plus an extra day, so you get 8 days. Pesach, is also Passover. Also comes out being sort of an 8-day holiday. There were a lot of things in the temple that were 8. Like the high priest has 8 garments that he wears. There were 8 special different instruments, like tools that were used for different things in the temple. There's a whole list of like 8 this, and there were 8 that, and everything is 8, 8, 8, 8. So it's sort of like we like 8. It's a good number. It's a day extra past a week. A week seems like too short of a party, but 9 days feels too long maybe. So we get 8 days. So now the real question is, why are there 12 days of Christmas?
Let me go back to 8 first. Hold on. So, 8 days in the Catholic Church, we do celebrate that number quite often. The baptismal font where we do all of our baptisms at our parish particularly actually is an octagon, where there's 7 days of creation. That 8th day is for us to keep going. That was one of the stories I heard. Okay, maybe. But particularly Christmas and Easter, to this day, we still have what's called an octave, and we celebrate that day for 8 days. The same parts of the Mass are used, those additional Sunday parts, the additional stuff that we do, usually just on a Sunday, because a Sunday Mass versus a Tuesday Mass, is usually about half the amount of time. A Tuesday, it's about 20 minutes. It's closer to an hour on a Sunday, depending on where you go. Certain prayers are omitted, but for the octave of Christmas and Easter, we do the whole thing every day for those 8 days.
So it's actually 8 days.
It's actually 8 days.
So where did the 12 days come from?
The 12 days, they do all have scriptural significance. Do I know what they all are off the top of my head? I don't, to be honest with you. I probably should have brushed up a little bit more before I came. But yeah, there is a Christian symbolism to the whole thing. But the first day would be the day of Christmas. 8 days later, or 9 days later, once we get to January 1st, be the feast that used to be called the Feast of the Circumcision, where Jesus was named. So that was a day it's since been replaced, but it's still the same gospel reading. We still hear about Jesus being circumcised and named that day by Joseph. But the day is still there. And then the Feast of the Epiphany, which is, January, it is the 8th, but we move it because our bishops are special and, they changed everything. And under obedience, I can't say anything otherwise on tape. When we do celebrate it, that will be like towards the end of that 12-day period. So all those 12 days of Christmas, even though there are sales and everything on now for the 12 days of Christmas. Well, Christmas keeps going.
And they got the catchy song, too.
Yeah, but it starts on Christmas. It doesn't end on Christmas. So it keeps going. And that was more of a secular song based off of Scripture. Yep.
Okay.
We can put that in the show notes when we post this. We'll find an official, a good
Yeah,
translation.
you have 8 days, right? The bris milah, the circumcision is done on the 8th day. So 8 is an important number for a lot of different reasons. And it seems like, okay, well, we're going to have a holiday. It's going to be more than 1 day. How many days is it going to be? Look at all of our other holidays that are longer than a day or two. They're 8 days. So, so why was Hanukkah decided to be 8 days? Probably because we have many other holidays that are 8 days, but maybe because the oil lasted for 8 days, or for 7 days, plus a miracle of some other nature on the first day. But it's. Yeah, it's a good one. Let's keep going.
What else you got? Try to stump us.
We just mentioned that Christ was circumcised 8 days after he was born, and we follow the same thing with the male birth. So there are so many things connected or parallel that the more we talk about it, the more we can see where some of the parallels come from. And that was one of the things you just mentioned. So let's keep going and compare them.
We can keep going and compare them. So, yeah.
Good.
So, right. So even though Jesus wasn't biologically Joseph's child, Mary was conceived by the Holy Spirit, as we hear from Scripture, and with official teaching of the church. Joseph still has a dream. That's actually the gospel we read today at Mass, where he's told not to divorce his wife. There's no need to, because he wants to divorce the wife quietly, call the wedding off. Let's move on. And because Joseph was considered a righteous man. But he keeps going. He knows to name him Jesus. He has a dream about it. Mary has an encounter with one of the angels, Gabriel, a little bit early on. And as they continue on, Joseph does need to name him. And now this is how, scripture-wise, he does fall into the line of David. And he falls into the line going from Abraham to David to the Babylonian exile until these 14 generations. We can do a whole thing on numerology because there's so many numbers that repeat themselves that I just don't know all the answers on. And then, yeah, Steph is rolling her eyes like she does in class. I don't know all the answers on them. One of my 8th graders is here today. There's so much of it, and it definitely all comes from, Jewish tradition. We've continued it on some level. But yeah, so at 8 days it's done, and then he's then presented in the temple. Traditionally, 40 days later on February 2nd, we celebrate that day, where there's just so much more we can get into with that. It's kind of a favorite of mine, where there's a gentleman in the temple named Simeon, who is promised by God he will not die until the Savior is there, until the Messiah comes. And when Jesus is brought into the temple by his parents, says, "Lord, now let your servant go in peace. Your word has been fulfilled. My own eyes have now seen the salvation, which you have prepared in the sight of every people, a light to reveal you to the nations." So we have the light reference again. And this is now the end. And there's great pictures of him in the temple, like holding the Christ child, with his parents in the background, still trying to understand exactly what's going on at this point.
So were they taken for Pidyon Ben?
Yes, the offering of the sacrifice of the turtle doves. Yeah, and that's also traditionally a feast day where we do bless all the candles for the year, mostly symbolically. We'll have a stack of candles in front of the altar on that day. This is usually during the podcast time, just to give you a little backstory, where one of us we say something and the gears start turning. Rabbi just had that moment. I'll have it a couple of times as well before the end of the evening.
Well, I was thinking because a woman a woman's firstborn child is a son, then that boy is supposed to be redeemed from the temple.
Mm-hmm.
And that is usually done 30 days from birth. So, but there's a lot of caveats to it, and so even I had an argument with my sister-in-law. I don't know if she listens, over how common it was, and I projected that only about 30% of births qualified in the Jewish community, because it has to be a natural birth, and it has to be, the woman can't be descended from a Levi or a Kohen, but also the husband can't be a Levi or a Kohen, and then also if she had any, like if she had a miscarriage, God forbid, or something like that, like there are things that can disqualify. If it was a C-section, it disqualifies it. So there's like a lot of, so it's like not actually that common.
So if it wasn't 30 days,
this.
would they do it at 40?
You could do it. You could do it later.
It would do it later.
You could do it later. Yeah. And it says if a father didn't redeem his son when he grows up, he has to do it himself.
Okay.
That you have to give 5 silver coins to a priest. So it happened. You're not supposed to, Jewish tradition, you're not supposed to really hope one way or the other. And certainly once you know that that woman is pregnant, you shouldn't wish that it was one thing or the other. Say, oh, I wish it was a boy, I hope it's a girl, or whatever. Because if it's not, then maybe you could. It's almost like putting a curse on the child a little bit. So I said, I'll be very happy either way. Whatever our baby is, I'll be very happy either way. But a little bit deep down, I was kind of like, but it'd be awfully cool to get to do the mitzvah. It's like So
the twinkle in your eye was an asterisk.
I guess.
Yeah. Got it.
Yeah. And it happened that, of course, we had a boy. And my wife was an absolute trooper and with delivery and everything, and so okay, great, we qualified. So then I got to do the mitzvah and buy him back from the Kohen, and what was funny was the Kohen who I bought him back from has a daughter who said, "Oh, are we going to take the baby home? Is he coming home with us?" It's like, well, what if the rabbi decides not to buy him back? So
there seems to be a lot of exchange. I think there was one we had to do in the springtime during Passover. I had to buy all the bread products from the entire community.
Right. Yeah. Sure.
And I could have went into
You could have come in and bought any of it.
To Miss Cohen's cabinet and taken all of her bread out that day.
Yeah.
I technically owned it for a hot minute.
Well, so for a few minutes, the Kohen owned my son as well,
right.
and I was able to buy him back with the silver coins. So what we would have to look into, and this is maybe not the most. I think it's about Christmas. It's about Christmas. Is we may have to do a whole nother conversation on the symbolism of redeeming your son with silver coins, and then if I recall correctly, that there were some silver coins around Easter time.
Yeah.
Maybe around Easter we may have to touch back on that again as well.
All right.
It could be an interesting...
Maybe our official scribe could write that down and send in the question.
So... But we have another question here.
This might be on your list already, I don't know. So I wanted to talk about the origin of the Christmas tree.
Okay.
And I think I have a particular thing in mind because the next holiday that we are celebrating is Tu B'Shvat, which is basically the celebration of trees. Okay, and the significance of trees. Now, I know obviously that the tree has some significance in this tradition, in your tradition, but I don't know. So I'm curious about, of course, the origin of the Christmas tree, and then also, is there any other celebration of trees, of the growth and things, nature kind of holidays that celebrate the growth and the significance of trees?
I can't just say yes to both of these, right? So, obviously, first century Middle East, we don't have Christmas trees. There's mentions of a Lebanon cedar, but that is far from the evergreen tree by any stretch. The Christmas tree itself was a Germanic tradition coming from 1500s Germany. It started around the Protestant Reformation. There were an abundance of evergreen trees that essentially don't die year-round, just like the light of Christ and God being in your life year-round. The evergreen tree was always there. Adding lights to it, light of Christ coming into the world, they started adding candles to it. Now we have LED lights. I prefer white lights. If you think otherwise, we're gonna throw hands afterwards. My wife and I, we have a disagreement on that tremendously, if the white or colored lights. I prefer white. I blame my mother. So my wife and I, we go back and forth with it. But essentially that ornaments reminding us, of happy times, those good memories. There are so many different origin stories of this. There's an origin story with mushrooms, as Mr. Buccigrossi was pulling up earlier. I'm not even going down that road. It has to do with this peculiar pagan tradition. I was just familiar with it as of the other day. I thought that was kind of odd. Little gnomes. There's so many different things just culturally where they developed in Europe or Eastern European countries, depending on where they developed from. As immigrants have come over to the United States, became more popularized. The same thing with Santa Claus. Eastern European tradition. Saint Nicholas, real person, 400s. He was at this one council called the Council of Nicaea in 325, where the church was confused about what we were believing with the actual person of Jesus Christ. If he was if he didn't know if he was God, if he did, back and forth. This growing group of people had their own opinions on it. St. Nicholas punches him in the face. It shows up around the 13th of December every year when his feast day shows up. All the memes come up online about St. Nicholas punching Arius in the face. It helps us understand our tradition a little bit more. The red Santa Claus, we know, more of a Coca-Cola idea. He went from green, where the typical garb of a bishop, up a couple hundred years ago, the garb kind of changed over the time, but bishops traditionally wore green. Their coat of arms still have this green hat called the Galero, but Coca-Cola, their company color is red. They wear red. The Santa Claus hat, the Pope actually still has the option to wear it. There's pictures of Pope Benedict who still wears that hat, wore that hat, when he was with us. It's just a winter clerical attire hat. We have lots of different fun hats in the Catholic Church. Yeah. Depending on your rank, depending on how many you can wear and what color codes you can have with it and everything. Even like the red color with the white lining, that fur lining still exists.
I think I was going to say, I feel like I saw a picture of a pope wearing like a fur trimmed like cape, kind of a thing.
Benedict
and it was
wore
like,
it.
Wow, like that looks a lot like, like more like the Nordic Father Christmas kind of thing,
Essentially, Middle Ages. It was cold. There's no central heating. Fur-lined things were more popular. Pope Benedict apparently got cold often. He brought back some of the older vestments that we hadn't seen
when he was German as well.
And he was German,
right? So bringing back the.
He was a man of structure. He brought back a lot of traditional things. Pope Francis discarded them. Didn't want to wear them. Pope Leo has yet to put it on. I know a lot of traditionalists were looking for it once liturgical winter, as it's called, after November 1st to Easter is liturgical winter. They were hoping he was going to put it on. He hasn't yet, but we'll see as his pontificate goes. He still has a number of years left, God willing.
Now there was a comedian, Jewish comedian. People may recall this bit. He said that it's a good thing that Jews don't have Christmas trees, because we would have a whole book about the rules that it has to be. Well, if it can't be more than 7 feet tall or less than 5 feet, but if it's 6 feet tall, then that only depends on whether it includes the stand or if it doesn't include the stand. There has to be a certain amount of lights on it. And he had this. It was great little bit about like the halacha of Christmas. If Jews had Christmas trees, what would the halacha be? What would the rule book for that be?
I mean, we used to have
So,
books
but
on
do you
candles.
have,
On Christmas trees,
you have
no.
any kind of rules?
No, there is nothing. Because I guess it was more of a Protestant tradition that so many people adopted. Yet there are no rules on it. The church does not need to have 4 Christmas trees and 6 if there's more than 1,000 people in there or anything. No, nothing along those lines. I personally like poinsettias. My pastor does not. We don't have them at this time of year. Some places already do. He also doesn't like lilies. My daughter is literally named Lily because of the Easter lilies. I clearly like them. He's allergic, so we don't have them in this church. So I'm still there.
Practical, though.
Yeah, more practical in his part. Also, the pollen gets all over the vestments. I mean, it can be a bad thing. But yeah, just to kind of let you know, candles, we used to have very specific rule books on all the candles, on the position, on which way you would light them, and the order which to extinguish them afterwards. The only real rule now is it has to be at least 2 candles on our altar, and they need to be 51% beeswax or more. Because the work of bees creates candles. It's a symbol of Christ, of how, in springtime they come out, they make wax, they do produce good things, they spread the word, just like Christ did in spreading the gospel, and we all are his messengers. So deeper meeting, and then, a lot of these Easter proclamations that we have during our Mass during the night before Easter talk about the work of bees. So you'll see little bee symbols around, Christian churches, especially around Easter time.
Meanwhile, people use candles for the Hanukkah menorah, but the most
beeswax?
traditional way is to use olive oil.
Okay.
And it should be an oil that, right? So the oil in the temple burns, so like burn some oil in memory of it, kind of a thing. But now people often use candles as well. I usually use oil at home. It's very nice.
And I've noticed that a
oil
lot of
cups
people
and
have
light them
more personalized menorahs.
Yeah.
And
it
there's
can
no
be
standard with it. It's just whatever
what,
your flavor is.
So what makes a kosher menorah then?
I mean, I know your wife has one with like a
Hanukkah
harp
menorah.
on it. Yeah, this one's a little bit different. And
So to be I guess kosher Hanukkah menorah, or a Chanukiah, some people call it has to have the 8 candles or lights that are all on the same level. That's the one that sometimes manufacturers get wrong.
with the contemporary ones, they all get kind of
Sometimes
funky.
they're all different
Yeah.
levels, and that's not really a valid menorah. So they're supposed to all be the same height, but then the 9th one has to be separated somehow. So it can be off to the one side. You see a lot as well. Where it's like the one is off to the side, and then the others are all kind of in a row. Or it can be in the middle, and it can be higher up. It can be lower down. It can be to the front. It can be like, if you look at this one here, we have the 9th one is not really that much higher. It's set behind the other ones, though. So it's set off to the side. So that's the distinguishing feature. Although the Rambam, 12th century Spanish rabbi, wrote the first codex, first code of Jewish law, does say that you could potentially take a bowl of olive oil and just put wicks around it, and as long as they are separated enough that they're clearly distinguishable as individual lights, that could function.
Okay.
So, and that is just a bowl with a bunch of wicks, stuck into it, and like that, in theory, that could work. If it's all you had, like that, it could work.
Okay.
Minimum, you have to have one candle or one light of some kind. That's
So I have a burning question about Hanukkah.
burning question. Yeah.
And I think you might have answered this on Facebook, so you know where I'm going with this.
Okay.
How do you spell it? Because even my autocorrect, I'm the one who runs the Instagram, and I posted it one way, and there was like a hashtag, and it's like, that looks off, and it was like a slightly different spelling than the image you gave me. And
Okay, I'll give you my hot take.
for those of us who don't follow you on Facebook and saw your very nerdy response, as somebody said,
Yeah. Okay, I'll give you my hot take is there probably isn't a right way. But transliteration, so when you take words that are in a different alphabet and you put them into the English to make people who can't read that language be able to read it, it should be clearly able to read it, right? So in any way that accurately communicates the phonetic pronunciation of the word is probably a correct spelling. That said, the only one that I like is H with a diacritical dot under it.
for those of us who don't know what that is,
It's just a little dot underneath
under
the
the
H.
H. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
literally just a dot
Okay.
under the H. Or you can underline the H.
Okay.
Anukah. There's no reason to double the N, and there's no reason to double the K, because it's not Hanukkah, right? It's not Hanukkah, and it's not Hanukkah. So why are you doubling up the sound?
Is that a Hallmark thing? They
Yeah.
put it in there for the cards.
Hanukkah. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
I don't know. You got to be careful though. You don't want to go up to too many of these. Two U's. Why is no one spelling it with two U's? You know, like, or two H's at the
The
beginning
CH
or
version,
something.
right?
You
You
know.
heard that from the crowd.
Well, the CH, right? So
Is that the Brooklyn way? So,
Because the sound doesn't exist in English, people. So I'll put it this way: for Jews, I often spell Hanukkah CH. For non-Jews, I never do, because people who are familiar with Hebrew and are familiar with Jewish words, challah, Hanukkah, Chodesh, right? A lot of these words, they'll see that and they go, oh, that is a transliteration of chet. Okay, fine. Someone who isn't familiar with Hebrew, and they're going to say, oh, I loved going to the Chanukah party, having some challah with my friends from Chabad. And it's like, no, none of that is right. So it's actually a better phonetic guess to just put a H than it is to go ch, I think. But it's highly debated.
okay. A lot of things, it seems to be highly debated.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
The only one that actually matters is Tu B'Shvat, and that there is clearly a correct way to spell
All right.
that.
And there's an apostrophe in that one.
No.
No? Different word? Okay. All right.
Bishvat, Tu B'Shvat. Yeah. Okay. All right.
You thought there was an apostrophe. Okay. All right. I'm not crazy. All right.
No.
I have a related question. So speaking about spellings, if someone chooses to write Xmas, is that offensive? Because I've heard that, so how do you spell Christmas? Or,
Okay.
is it?
Oh, that's a
So,
good.
Does anyone have a
that's
bingo
nice
card
connection.
for how many different languages we're going to hit tonight? So,
Yeah.
right. So now we go to the Greek.
Okay.
Right. Did anyone see that coming? So in Greek, all right, how do we do this? Steph, we just went over this in class. Let's go back to the early Christian church. Roman Empire doesn't like the Christians at all. They're underground. They're doing little symbols on stores, on houses, on graves to mark that somebody's a Christian. In the Greek, the initials for Jesus Christ would be a P, an uppercase P, and then an X underneath it. It's referred to as the Cairo. So it's a J, and then it's a CH. Some variations thereof. You know more Greek than I do.
No, it's been years and years since I did any
Which
Greek.
is more than I know. Right. But so the X in Xmas is the X from the Cairo. So the CH would be in there. Some people say it's offensive because it's like you're Xing out Christ out of Christmas. Well, if you know the actual origin story, it's you going back to the Greek for the CH, so like Christ Mass, because it's an older English term of literally it's Christ Mass of the birth of Christ, and that's the Mass we celebrate that day. Been shortened down to Christmas as we know it, in modern English at this point. But yeah, the X, it's Greek, not offensive once you know what it really means. Some of the kids at my school were asking. For those of you who don't know, I'm a middle school teacher at St. Benedict's. I teach religion. And they were asking about it. There's so many different symbols out there. They've just been taken over the years, done a little bit differently. I use the X in Xmas, but I do explain it to a bunch of 12-year-olds so they understand where it's coming from. But like there's like the Jesus fish that sometimes you see on the back of a car, referred to as the ichthos, the fish, as in one of the miracle of the loaves and fishes. That was a symbol on early Christian tombs. There's a seashell, there's small crosses. You'll see sometimes a shepherd with a lamb, the lamb itself, just different symbols from Scripture, just to indicate that the person was Christian, that have kind of come down over the years, and we still use them. One of my favorite Christian symbols, just to go along those lines, is actually the pelican. Now, John is looking at me. John, do you want to explain the pelican? Sorry, I'm doing my teacher voice at this point. So the pelican is just an ancient Roman tradition. The pelican would actually, in times of drought, the mother will peck at her own breast and feed her young with it, like giving her flesh, just like Christ gave his flesh for us, and we remember him. Completely a Roman myth, adopted by the Christians, but you'll still see pelicans on altars, just Christian art buried in a stained glass window somewhere, but it's just an ancient Christian symbol that the Christians adopted from the Roman pagans at the time.
So when I see sometimes, I have a lot of different types of friends, like on Facebook or something, and sometimes you see people and keep the Christ in Christmas. Don't put the X type. So really, it just means they missed Sunday school.
Correct. Yeah. Now, some people just want to shorten it down, but yeah, once you do a little more digging, it's just, user error, as we sometimes say. Another question coming up.
I wanted to know the significance of the 7 fishes that you have eat on Christmas. We eat potato latkes and jelly donuts, but I was interested in the 7 fishes.
Okay, sure. So 7 is just a symbolic number. We have 7 days of creation. We have 7 sacraments. It's a number of completion. Prior to the 1970s, the day before a major holiday would be a fast day, abstaining from meat, some sort of fasting going on. It became more of an Italian tradition to have a feast of 7 fishes. So we are celebrating, but we're still abstaining we're removing something from our lives. We're removing meat from our lives. 7 just being a number of like perfection at that point. So Italian tradition that came over, my mom and I were making, did we count 7? There's certain ones that are my favorites that I've heard are not kosher, so I won't dare to mention them at this point. They're delicious. I like them. We'll talk about them later. They're usually included in Italian seafood salad, one of my favorites, but no scales.
Now, did I ever tell you about when I happened to be at a Christmas Eve 7 fishes thing, and I said, "Oh, onion rings," and someone went, "No, not for you."
Yeah. All right.
Okay. I guess it's not for me.
It is not for you. We actually
were
had
like,
this
"Don't
as a
eat
parking
that."
lot meeting. Last time I was here for whatever, we had a parking lot meeting. We started talking about it, and I was almost devastated. It's like, oh yeah, that's not going to work. This isn't going to work out. Yeah.
I appreciate that. Yeah,
Yep.
thanks. They're like, "Don't eat that."
And you can make it so many different ways. Anyway.
I don't know. What else is a little fried circle like that? I don't know.
You can bake them, put them in a sauce. Yeah.
I had a question when I was in elementary school in December, the big debate was what is better, like the 1 big day of gifts or the 8 days of gifts. So I went to public school. So I'm wondering about the tradition of gift giving. Where did that that come from? Because it's not, it didn't start on Christmas. I don't, like Hanukkah, I don't think it started during the miracle of the lights. So just wondering about that.
Ah.
Oh.
Gift giving. Do you
When
want
does yours start? Let's see.
well, ours mostly starts with yours.
Probably, right? Right, we kept borrowing from each other? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we have to go a little more, even more basic. In the rest of the world, in the rest of the Jewish world, Hanukkah is not as big a deal. It's nice because it's a holiday that doesn't really have rules so much. Like so many of our holidays have at least a day or two of a lot of restriction. The same way that Shabbat has restrictions. You're not cooking food on that day. You're not working. But they're also particular. What that means is very particular, right? So Hanukkah, there's no Chag. There's no day which is also called a Yom Tov, or no day of restricted labor. So because of that, it's great because you can have a lot of parties, you can do a lot of things, and you don't have to worry about messing anything up that way. But like when I was living in Jerusalem, Hanukkah is nice because it's cold and it's damp. It doesn't really snow much there, but it rains a lot at this time of year. So it's always kind of damp and it's always kind of cold. And you walk around in the evening and everyone puts their Hanukkah menorah outside. So you walk past an apartment building and there's 50 menorahs in these little glass boxes, outside the building. Or you walk through like the old city and every doorway has one or two next to it. And it's beautiful. And you walk around and you see these lights and it kind of makes you feel hopeful about the time of year and everything. And then that's the only time of the year you can get donuts in Israel. But otherwise, it's like a really low-key holiday. There's not a lot going on. In America, it became a much bigger deal. And there are actual books written about this. One was just recently suggested to me. I have to actually I have to get it and read it. But there are books about Hanukkah in America, and how it has changed because of Christmas in America. And so the kind of commercialization aspect that is just sort of a cultural response to what's happening in America. Look, the same way that there are plenty, I'm sure that the Deacon will maybe has, I don't know if you have some numbers for this, but the same way that there are people who are entirely secular, they never go to a church, they never go to anything, but they do Christmas, right? So, I mean, there are Jews that, look, you get influenced by the culture around you. So it has become a much bigger deal in America than it is in other parts of the world. That said, I'm going to say this is a folk etymology because I don't know how true this is. It's what you get told, kind of. So it could be a folk explanation, is that the real thing we encourage on Hanukkah is giving tzedakah, that you should give charitably, okay? And that's actually the reason given for why Gelt, the chocolate coins now, okay? Why do we have chocolate coins as a thing for Hanukkah? Why is that? Because you're supposed to be you're supposed to teach your kids to give to other people, to give charitably. And so the real custom is every day you should give your kids some money and tell them to put it in the tzedakah box. Put that in the box. We're going to give that to people who need it. And then it's like, okay, but you're going to give them something and tell it to give them to someone else. They should get a little something too. So you can see how it flows into it a little bit. All right, give the kids a little something too, and but remind them that the important thing is not what is it? It's better to give than it is to receive.
Correct, yeah.
Right? So to teach them, look, give this to people who need it. And here's some chocolate for you. It's like positive reinforcement, I suppose. But of course, in America, it kind of morphs into a whole different a whole different thing, right?
So-
Culture, you can't escape it.
I am going to talk about gifts, but we need to come back to the cruddy weather in Jerusalem this time of year.
Oh, I didn't say it was
Well,
bad
wet,
weather. I just said it was cold
not
and
ideal.
damp.
Cold and damp. Just put a pin in that one. We're going to get right back to it. So the Feast of the Epiphany, when we talk about like the end of the 12 days of Christmas, when Scripture tells us 3 magi, 3 wise men from the east come and deliver, and they want to see the Christ child. They present 3 gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Gold being for him being of the kingly class. The frankincense is incense. It's resin for incense to be burned for our prayers going to heaven for his priestly class. And myrrh is probably the most obscure gift to give to a mother when her child is born, because it's used to preserve a body once it passes away, for predicting that Jesus would die, and she will be aware of it, and she will be there. So kind of an obscure baby shower gift, but again, memes start coming about it. Once you start seeing it in like colorful pictures, they're like, oh yeah, that really is kind of an odd gift to give. But it was of the future. It needed to be there at that point.
So along the lines of the gifts of the Magi, are there parallelisms in Judaism for gold, frankincense, and myrrh? Because I had heard actually the foundation began in Judaism. Do you use those in your practice at all?
Well, in the temple, there were a lot of things that were gold-plated. I mean, the menorah in the temple was, depending on who you ask, either hammered or cast gold. The Ark of the Covenant was coated in gold. There's the golden altar. You know, I mean, there's a lot of gold in the temple. Like that's one thing that we should just, go ahead and kind of acknowledge. A lot of gold in the temple.
And the incense was used in the temple as well for prayer.
So the incense that was used in the temple is kind of like a, what do you call it in a business when there's like a secret ingredient? Proprietary information, okay? So the incense is proprietary to the priesthood, okay? But it consisted of, I think, 26 or 27 ingredients. Okay, and frankincense is definitely one of them, but it's not the only thing. There's like a lot of stuff in the incense. And can I go on a brief tangent?
Please do. I love incense.
Not for your middle schoolers. This part of the
all right, Steph, close your
of the
ears.
conversation here. But so they went in, the archaeological teams that were digging in Shiloh, which is up in northern Israel. This is the location where the tabernacle was prior to the building of the temple in Jerusalem. And then when the kingdom split after Solomon, you had the temple in Jerusalem, which was in the kingdom of Judah. But the kingdom of Israel, which had 10 tribes, they had a separate temple that was functioning at Shiloh also, or Shiloh, okay? So they found that location, and they know that that's a temple site, and they found the altar where the incense was burned, and they know that that's an altar where incense was burned because it's all black and caked in incense resin, and they tested it. They said, what was in this incense? And it turns out that there was a abnormally high percentage of a chemical compound that is extremely closely related to THC. So, why would the priests have something in their incense that was extremely similar to inhaled substances that are somewhat mind-altering, but chemically it's there, right? So there's something in it that has that there, and there's speculation over what ingredient may have had that, and there's speculation over why you would want it. I felt like maybe a priest who's approaching the supreme being of the universe might need to mellow a little bit. Like that could be, you could get maybe like really stressed out about being in that kind of situation. But it's also possible that sometimes you need help to have a vision, right? I mean, so
I
maybe.
mean, and then also I'm thinking it was only once a year, or it was one person at a time. So maybe there was some situational stress because you're not usually doing this.
Yeah, sure. The high priest goes in to offer incense by himself in the most holy of holies, like.
Take the edge off.
I can take
Yeah.
the edge off, right?
All right.
So the incense is very interesting.
Is there a book on that?
I'm sure there's several. I don't have one, but
Okay.
there's articles. If you look, you can look online. You can find there are a lot of articles about the chemical compounds of the incense at the archaeological site of Shiloh. And you can find a couple of those studies, which are it's interesting. It's right. So incense. So certainly frankincense was used. Myrrh, I couldn't tell you. Definitely not with the same type of symbolism I think is used in the nativity story. That these are three kind of like most important types of gifts here. For us, like there's a lot of gold. There's a lot of incense. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a good question, but I don't really have a good answer to it, I guess.
Just to go back to the weather in Jerusalem. Let's switch gears a little bit. So prior to us recording, we were noshing on some Oreos in the back. Somebody had asked about, is the date of Christmas December 25th? Was truly that the date the Christ child was born? And the answer to that is no. Nobody's ever thought that. It's just become tradition of the church. Tradition initially was the conception of Jesus was always March 25th. We go forward 9 months. We're now in December. There's different theories over taking over pagan holidays, of Christ being the light of the world, so we'll put it in December. Once you start looking into the scripture, it most likely, it couldn't have happened at that time because there were shepherds in a field, and at that time of year, shepherds would not be in a field. It's cold, it's damp. They're not taking their flock out into the field at that time. The weather, the stars at that point, I think NASA has done something. I have to verify all that because there's always this stuff on the internet. It's like, is it really true? Like, what's the source of this whole thing? We don't like to just say things without sources. The light going on, was it a supernova? Who knows what it was? But, NASA has pinpointed it. It probably is realistically sometime in the spring or the fall. That was most likely what would have been. But celebrating an actual birth, we don't have the birth certificate of Yeshua Bar Yosef, who grew up in Jerusalem, Nazareth.
I know that there's, I don't remember where I saw somebody talking about this, some speculation that it may have been closer to Sukkot as a holiday.
Realistically, yeah, it would have been a nicer time of year.
It would have been a much nicer time of day. Yeah. Although, why you would be trying to stay in a hotel when everyone is staying in a hut is another.
You also
issue.
hear from Scripture it was a time of a census, which would not have happened in cruddy weather kind of time of year. It would have been either the spring or the fall when the Roman Empire would have been calling for a census and everyone was traveling. They were traveling for some sort of a holiday. Everyone was coming together. That's why the towns were full and. Joseph forgot to, book the Airbnb and, and then even the nativity in the cave, depending on which description, that doesn't show up till the 1200s. It does not say that in scripture that they had this nice little nativity scene and everyone was there with a little light bulb in the background. 1200s, medieval times, a guy named St. Francis of Assisi wanted to make it more realistic for people. So he did a live nativity in Italy, 1233-ish or so. Yeah, much more recent.
I did one time when I was in Israel go to the Church of the Nativity in Bethlehem, and I gotta say, if you had to stay in a stable because it's like a cave underneath, it's like the church, and then there's like a cave underneath it, and they were like, "Oh, this cave was the stable." You could do worse.
It was out of the cold, right?
You're
there.
It was actually that was a really cool building.
And there's lots of layers of symbolism of the whole thing. Jesus being born in Bethlehem, the city of bread, city of David, born in a manger where animals feed from the body of Christ, where we feed later on. Well, there's just layers and layers of the whole thing that we can still study today and see the reflection on as we continue through the scriptures, getting up to Christmas. The question coming up.
You talked about commercialization, so I'm curious of what that Christmas was like before commercialization, and not necessarily way back in the first century, but back before it was as commercialized as it is today.
I think there was a lot of more salted meat products and, coffee and tea and, 1700s. I think it was more in 19th century. It started to get more and more commercialized. Victorian England, when the United States starts to become more the way we know it today. Prior to that, it was another feast day that came up. We have this preparation season called Advent, which I had mentioned. The vestments changed to this violet purple. In England, they were blue at one point, debating on back and forth on that one until about the 1500s. It was a season of fasting, a season of preparation coming for this season, the Christmas holiday, which then would have lasted, a few weeks at that point, and then it was more celebratory. But it was more focused on, hopefully, more the Christianity of it and understanding it, than having a big turkey dinner and giving, hundreds of dollars worth of gifts to your family, friends, children, things along those lines. So hopefully, setting an example, we do the right thing. I mean, there needs to be kind of a balance, as with everything. I'm sure there's some Jewish families that overdo it on the eight nights of gifts, and some that are just very simple and keep more of a focus, right?
Well, let me ask you this as new clergy. Are you I'm assuming, because I know I do this, so I wonder if you are too. It like encouraging people to kind of go back to maybe authentic celebration of a holiday, more about the spiritual and symbolic meaning of the holiday rather than some of the, I guess, more secularized cultural aspects. Like, because, I have spoken throughout the holiday that, part of Hanukkah is about a minority ideology standing up to a major cultural power and saying we're going to be our authentic selves and not cave to basically assimilation, which is in the Jewish world is a powerful idea because that's what we've had to do ever since, right? Ever since the Maccabean rebellion, we're still trying to hold our own against other majority culture that we live in and maintain our distinctive kind of nature. So that's a really powerful part of this holiday. And if people lean into that and reflect on that and then act on that, that can be a really powerful process to do. So what would it look like to encourage people, or what do you think it would look like if people took on a more spiritual celebration for your holiday season?
So I've actually kind of preached on this, especially this morning at Mass. I was preaching on it, essentially being realistic. And at any time of the year, it's wonderful that you want to be like a monk, you want to pray all the time, live in the church, but be realistic of the whole thing. Have an Advent wreath at home. You didn't get it lit this year. Maybe light it today. There's 4 candles. We're getting close. We have these little wafers in the back of the church that was more of a Slavic tradition, and this little prayer that you would say before your Christmas Eve meal. Now, I'm not Slavic or Eastern European at all, but it's kind of an interesting thought. Let's get some other traditions in there. Let's do something. Put a nativity scene up at home. I was preaching on this morning, and someone that follows me on Instagram tagged me in a post because they were like, Deacon Anthony talked about this. We finally got our nativity scene up today. We probably should have did this a while ago, but you know what? We're close. Let's be realistic. We're getting closer. Let's remember the reason for the season right now. So it's just doing little things to make you realistically one step a little bit closer, and not just someone who goes to Mass or goes to church on Christmas and Easter. Let's do a little bit more. Let's be a little more realistic as we start the new year, the new calendar year. The church year actually started when Advent started. That was actually the beginning of our church year. There isn't fireworks or big celebrations. Most people don't even notice it, but we change over at that time.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, open up and kind of let's give a last call for some questions, comments. We'll have to take our break for our evening prayer service here, but a couple last thoughts, questions.
Is there a specific reason why there's like a lot of blue and white during Hanukkah? Or is it
Okay, question is there a specific reason for a lot of blue and white during Hanukkah?
She was checking out your socks. That's
That's a
what it
good.
was.
Well, right. I think probably it's because blue is definitely one of my favorite colors, and white goes with everything. So I guess they knew I was coming and did it for me. More seriously, I think that's a more recent thing. I think it's an American thing. And I think that it's because this is conjecture, okay? This is me guessing. It's an educated guess, but it's a guess, okay? I think it's because the flag of Israel is blue and white, and it's because red and green are extremely visible colors for Christmas. So again, I think it's an American influence. How can you brand and then stand out? What stands out in a sea of red and green? Well, blue and white does pretty well, and we can say it's because it's also about Israel. It's about
The
the
blue
Maccabees.
thread. You were
Kind
mentioning
of
it one time.
is what?
The blue thread.
Right. Well,
the
blue
going
is
all the way back,
right. Blue
yeah.
certainly has strong connections to ritual items, but I mean that's why it's on the flag. It's,
Right.
it's supposed to look sort of like a talit, But I think that in America, you see things done that way because it kind of makes it stand out. It gives a color palette that is alternative to the green and red that we see everywhere else. So that's my educated guess. I guess.
I think it's a great guess. I like it.
Good
Good question, Steph.
One more question? Two more questions? I see some wheels turning in some folks out there, but let them turn right into the microphone. There we go.
Can you talk about the stained glass window behind you?
Sure. Okay, so we're here at, for listeners, we're here at my shul, Temple Beth Am, and behind us is a stained glass window that is features in the middle the menorah from the temple. So if you see the Hanukkah menorah is burning still a little bit here next to us, has 9 arms, but the one on the window only has 7. So that's the menorah in the temple had 7 arms. Okay, so in order to probably in order to make more sales, at a certain point, let's say around 300 or 400 Common Era, someone tacked on a couple more arms to the menorah and said, now this is one just for Hanukkah. So it has the 8 places, one for each day, and then the 9th one, all right, I'll do my other soapbox. The shamash candle, the extra one on the Hanukkah, is not actually to light the other candles. Everyone always says the shamash because we use it, which means like a servant candle, is because we use it to light the other candles. Okay, mine's oil. I'm not picking up the little thing of oil and like using it to light the other candles, the other oil lamps with. As soon as you tip it over, the oil is going to spill out, right? The reason is that the 8 candles that are for the holiday are ner mitzvot. They are special candles for the mitzvah, and it is prohibited to benefit from their light. The only thing that you're allowed to use that light for is to remind you of the miracles of the holiday. You can't read a book with it. You can't play dreidel. It's always in the song, right? As we're as we're playing, the candles are burning low, and it's like, no, you can't. You shouldn't be using the candles to play a game with, right? So there's the extra candle. It's not so much that it's the servant candle you're lighting the other ones with. It's the one that is serving And the purpose that it's serving is so that you don't have to worry about using that light for a prohibited purpose. Because how are you going to tell me that you're only using the light from this one and not the light from that one? It's impossible. So once it all gets mixed up together, you can use all of it. It's fine. Because how are you supposed to know?
Rabbi, the window.
Well, so that's what I'm saying. So now
She wanted to.
yeah, I feel like I explained the window. So the menorah that you see on the window has the 7 branches because that's what was in the temple. Okay, and I'll give you just a little background on this particular window. You see that it is in memory of Joseph Fisher, who died in 1948, 1868 to 1948. We certainly were not around in 1948. This building. This window, as well as other stained glass windows in the building, came from the Keyport Synagogue, which is just right up the way, and they actually kind of merged into us. When was that? 70 something, I think. Right? I think it was like early 70s. So we inherited their windows, and we're very proud to have them to display and remind us of the history of Jewish community in this area as well. So I think that
Yeah.
kind of wraps it up.
Next time we could talk more about that, because older European, Middle Eastern churches will actually have a menorah in it with 7, not for light, but as remembrance of the temple as well in the background. There's many parallels. But
we have some
I'll
beautiful
leave you.
stained glass windows in churches. They do some really nice work over there.
Yeah.
But we could go on and on. We're going to have to stop for our minion service, for the evening service. But thank you everyone for coming, and I hope it was a somewhat enlightening conversation.
Thank you all so much. Please keep sending in questions and stopping us on the street and reminding us that we said something in a podcast. I've gotten that a couple of times, especially from Tim. He's told me, I've heard this story before. It's like, I heard it on a podcast. Like, okay, sure. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night.
Thank
Be
you,
safe
everyone.
getting home.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays. Yes.
You can send us an email at friendscast@gmail.com. You can send us a voice memo on our Instagram, faithfulfriends_podcast.
We're on Facebook now. All of our stuff will be linked on the RSS webpage.
A big thanks to our producer, Evan Feist, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time.
All right. Thanks a lot, Rabbi. Appreciate your time.
Thank you, Anthony. Maybe it's time to wrap it up a little bit.
Sure.